Before you all met Michael Jackson, what did he mean to you?
So I first became aware of Michael Jackson when I was about 2. And I saw the making of Thriller. And just instantly became obsessed with it. And wanted to watch it all day, every day. And started doing the dance moves as soon as I could, walk properly. And then quickly my walls were plastered with, images of Michael, and he was just this absolutely incredible, otherworldly figure to me that I wanted to be just like and I dressed like him every day and did my hair and had my hair permed to look like him and all that stuff.
I wasn't a huge fan before I met him, and then when I got the commercial, they did
Pepsi commercial.
Yeah, the Pepsi commercial. They did this thing where they would say every day that Michael's going to show up, but it was always his stand-in. So actually, in the commercial, when you see me meet him, is actually my first time seeing him, and at that point I was pretty excited, and so it was otherworldly, I guess, or
Yeah, that was, it was one thing to meet him the first time when I was 5, and I ended up dancing with him in his show. He asked me to dance with him in the show the next night, and that was incredible. And we had a 2-hour hangout the next day with my mother in his hotel room. That was a whole nother level. Then we didn't have any contact for a couple of years, and then I met him again when I was 7. And this is when the, so-called friendship began. Here I was, this little boy from Australia, who I was so enamored by him, so in love with him, such a huge fan. And now, within the first day or so, he's telling me that we were brought together by God, that we were meant to be together, that he wanted to be my friend, and he thought I was amazing. He thought I was so talented, and he thought I was so sweet, and he wanted to spend all of his time with me. So this feeling of being, the chosen one, out of all the kids in the world.
You had to feel very special about that, Wade.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For you, James?
Yeah, he's just quickly, very likable and engaging, and gives you focused attention, and he's disarming. He's a charming guy, and so you instantly feel very comfortable with him. So that sort of bond and friendship develops quickly, and then he does start saying, "You're talented, you're special."
And him, the first night or so, teaching me the moonwalk, and so all these things that had been so surreal and from another planet on TV were now a part of my life. And Michael Jackson was my best friend, as he said.
He told you he would call you his best friend?
Yeah, within the first, day or so.
Did you feel like the best friend too, James?
Oh, for sure. It was very much you and him, sort of against the world kind of feeling. So yeah, you were very much best friends.
Did you two know each other as children?
No.
Were you aware of each other as children?
I had seen the Pepsi commercial that he was in. So I remember even seeing that commercial was like, that could be me, or that should be me. I wish that was me. But the only time I ever remember meeting James, or a couple times, was a little later when I was about 9 on the music video of Jam, Michael's Jam music video, which I danced in. And James was there with Michael as well, and we met then and hung out a little bit.
How do you go from Michael Jackson is an idol, we're friends, to now that friendship changes to what? How and when did it change?
So, the intense friendship with Michael started when I was about 7. Over the next 2 years, I still lived in Australia, and Michael would bring me out multiple times through those 2 years to spend time with him. So when we met the second time, when I was 7 years old, Michael invited us to Neverland that weekend. I think it was a Friday that we met initially. Talk about another planet. I mean, this was just the most magical thing I'd ever seen. flowers and statues and lights and trees. It just
Ferris wheel.
Yeah, just incredible. And that first night, you know, Michael, he kind of took us on a little bit of a tour, and he said to me and my sister, you know, you can stay in one of the guest rooms, or you can stay in here with me if you want. And my reaction was, of course, I want to stay with you. And I think we all just kind of knocked out at some point. Nothing particular happened that night. We had one more night that way, and then the plan was, the Monday, that myself and my family were going to leave and go on another kind of vacation to the Grand Canyon. I was devastated to leave Michael. Michael was devastated for me to leave. He actually sobbed in front of me.
So you got to stay.
So I got to stay. And so it was just Michael and I in Neverland for the next week. And
your parents allowed that?
My parents allowed that, yeah. And then within either the first or second night of Michael and I being alone at Neverland, the night started changing. And one of the ways I remember it starting is, you know, Michael just sort of starting to touch my legs and touch my crotch over my pants, and then it kind of kept progressing from there. He would grab my hand and have me do the same thing to you know, his crotch over his pants, and then it progressed to him performing oral sex on me, him showing me how to perform oral sex on him, him showing me how to French kiss, squeeze his nipples.
Did you know what was happening? Did you think that that was inappropriate? Did it scare you? Did you think it was wrong?
The couple days prior to the abuse starting, Michael had already started he started touching me, just in the sense of like hand on my leg, lots of hugs, kissing my forehead, rubbing my hand. So there had been this kind of development of physical closeness that was happening already that felt like a father, you know, just felt amazing. And strangely now, for me looking back at it, when it went to the next furthest extreme of sexual contact, something about it felt like just the next step. And really quickly, as Michael started doing these sexual acts, he started talking to me about, you know, God brought us together. We love each other, and this is how we
love each other.
We love each other, and this is how we show each other our love. And then right away, the next part of the dialogue was, but if anybody else ever found out about any of this, you and I would go to jail for the rest of our lives. And we'd be pulled apart. Our lives would be over. Our careers would be over. We can't let that happen. We've got so much to do together. We've got to rule the world together.
Were you frightened by the actions or his words?
I was not frightened by the actions.
You were not. You did
No.
not think, this is creepy, don't
No.
touch me,
No,
this is wrong. You didn't think any of that.
No, I didn't think any of that. It was, out of all the kids in the world,
Right.
here I am, and Michael chose me. And he also told me that, you know, I've never done this with anybody else.
Yep.
Yeah.
James, you're nodding in agreement to what he's saying.
Yeah, all this.
The conversation. Tell me what happened to you as you're listening to what Wade is saying. It clearly seems to resonate with you.
Yeah, I mean, that's all the same. You know, he did the same thing to me as well. He introduced me to masturbation, and then you start kissing, and I'm on tour, so we're together 24/7, and it's happening over a period of time. And then you're kissing, and he said I taught him how to French kiss. And then it moves on to oral sex. It's like, can I kiss it? That kind of thing. That's what it starts with. But it's
Are
not,
you frightened or thinking this is weird or wrong?
No, it's in the context of a loving, close relationship.
Or
So
special friends?
yeah, there's no alarm bells going off in your head, or or any thoughts like that. Really, it's just I love this person, and we're trying to make each other happy. And he said, I was his first, but even as a kid, you don't even know what that means. You don't even question it further than that.
Yeah, you don't say your first what.
Yeah, first what, right?
Yeah.
As an adult, you'd think
Yeah.
that, but as a kid, you're just like, oh, that's great. And you're special, and as well as we are not gay. We just love each other, and this is how you show your love.
He would say to you, "We're not gay."
Yeah.
Did you even know what that meant as a little kid? We're
Actually,
not gay.
yeah. I mean,
did.
as soon as the abuse started, I had this question of, does this mean I'm gay now? That when the abuse started on tour?
Where did these things happen, and where are the adults who are supposed to be watching you?
Right. So for me, in the beginning, there was those first couple nights in the bedroom with my sister. Once she was out of the picture was when things changed, right? And my parents and my grandparents left for that next week at Neverland. So for that first week of abuse, they were in another, part of California.
And what about Michael's staff?
Well, the staff are everywhere. Not in the room as
Yeah.
abuse is happening, but before and after and around, and there's maids and there's cooks and there's security guards everywhere.
And none of them appear to be concerned that you're staying in the room with him? No?
Not that I witnessed.
James, where were the adults?
So when you're there, there's nobody else there. And on tour, my mom would stay in a different room, and I was in Michael's room the whole time. At Neverland, I think he kept us away, or kept me away from the maids. So, when they come around, you kind of try to go away. And
Just on that point, that was always a thing that I remember from the beginning, Michael always saying, do not talk to any of the staff.
for sure.
Not allowed to have friendships and talk about anything we say, anything we do.
Yeah, and even on tour, to go off that, if somebody else talked to you, he would notice, and then he'd question you. What did they say? What do they want? And he makes you fearful of talking to other people. And there's, when you're on tour, everybody's wanting to talk to you and,
Right.
Ask you questions. But
At what point did you all start to think that this is wrong? Was there ever a point that you started thinking this is wrong?
While the abuse was going on, so the abuse for me went from age 7 to 14 years old. I do remember when I was about 11 or 12, as I would see him less frequently, and then when I would see him, it was still just kind of back to the old business, right? As soon as possible, as soon as we could get into a private space, if he wanted to do all the sexual stuff again. I remember feeling around 12, starting to be a little more uncomfortable about that, and sometimes maybe trying to change the subject or, distract, but then having a fear that if I don't do this, I'm already feeling like I'm not a favorite of Michael's anymore. And if I don't do this, what's going to happen? What's going to happen to our friendship?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You were worried about losing the friendship.
Yeah. So it was a feeling like you need to do what he
Continue
wants.
this because you wanted to still be friends with him. The public in general thinks it's violent, that it's very painful, that it hurts, and that it's very scary. But what you're describing is totally the opposite of that.
Right. Yeah, that was the thing, is that the way Michael approached the abuse, the sexual activity with me, was always extremely tender, and again, began with hugs and embraces and kisses on the head, and then just kept expanding in that direction, but to a obviously much more twisted place. But yeah, there was never, he didn't beat me, he didn't, he never said mean things to me. It was all, we love each other. It was all tender.
He made you feel special.
Yeah.
You all both tell a very descriptive story about sexual activity with Michael Jackson. He went to trial in 2005. He called on both of you to testify on his behalf. And Wade, you did. You got on the stand and you testified on his behalf and vehemently denied that any sexual activity had taken place.
Yes.
Why did you do that?
Yeah, well, the training, Michael's training of me to testify began the first night that he started abusing me. in the sense that, as I told you, that right away after the first kind of experience of sexual abuse, he started telling me that if anybody else ever finds out, we'll both go to jail. Both of our lives will be over. We can't tell other people, this is what Michael would say, because other people are ignorant. They just wouldn't understand that this is how we show our love, right?
Why did you want to protect him? You loved him.
Because I loved him. And the thought of him going to jail was an unfathomable thought for me that would just terrified me. And so I was going to do anything I could do to protect my friend.
They credit your testimony in part for Michael's acquittal. You were called really a star witness. You withstood a blistering cross-examination. Yeah. On some level, do you feel guilty about that now? Because another person who was making allegations, Michael Jackson was acquitted of what he was accused of doing to him. Right. Do you think about that, or did you think about it?
Yeah, I do think about that. I have, and I do. Gosh, I wish it was different. I wish that I was ready. I wish that I could have helped Gavin Arvizo receive some justice and some validation for what happened to him. That was just like what happened to me and just like what happened to James. And I wish that I could have played a role in, at that point, stopping Michael from abusing however many other kids he did after that.
Yeah, you're both admitting to us that you did lie in the past. The Jackson family and Jackson fans, as you know, are adamantly defending him and saying that you all are admitted liars. You're trying to exploit him. He is no longer with us. You're just opportunistic and trying to get money from the estate and from Michael Jackson. What do you all say to that?
It's an old argument that they've used for many, every time they come out with that. They say it's just about the money. For me, the lawsuit was about fighting back for little James. Nobody fought for me as a kid, but I'm old enough now to fight for myself. So win or lose, that doesn't matter. What matters is fighting. And so this part of my process, my healing process.
I understand why that's hard for people to get, because it's really complex, emotionally, psychologically. The way that this has evolved for me, after I fell apart emotionally in an explicit way with a couple of nervous breakdowns, which led to me disclosing the abuse for the first time to my therapist. Once I began talking about it after 22 years of silence, it initiated this kind of, everything I'd been holding down for 22 years started coming out of me, right? This emotional and mental and physical upheaval. And then some point in that healing process, I would say, I don't know, maybe 9 months or so in, what started arising in me was this question, first, how can I take this thing that happened to me, Michael abusing me, this horrible thing that happened to me, that shouldn't have happened to me, that shouldn't happen to any kid, but it did. So what can I do with it now? Right? How can I take this bad thing and try and turn it into something good for other people and for myself? So from that question arose this desire, how could I tell the truth, and where, and what platform?
When I hear you, and you both are saying very similar things, that you want to help others, that you want to shine a light, and it sounds very noble. So there is still a potential of getting money from the Jackson estate. And they're saying that if you didn't have that looming even as a possibility in the background, you would not be telling this story.
So in relation to...
That this is all about money is their bottom line here.
Right.
Especially Wait for You.
Right. In relation to me deciding to do the court case in the first place, it was all those reasons I spoke of, trying to find a platform. But that's the thing, trying to find what is the most powerful platform to tell my story. And the legal system is what we have, right? I could have just, gone and done interviews and that sort of thing, right? And it most likely would have been sensationalized and would have been all the buzz for a couple of weeks or a month, and then it's over, and what good would that have done? Yeah. So it was my attempt to try and find a platform where this would be taken seriously. So that's why I chose that platform.
I understand that the producer, director, Dan Reed, came to you. You all didn't go to him.
Yeah.
Are you all getting paid for your participation in this documentary?
No, we're not getting paid for the documentary, never will, never have.
No licensing for photos or for video?
Never have and never
Yeah.
will receive a cent from this documentary film in any way, shape, or form.
You too, James? Were
Yeah,
there
no.
any money that did you get any money for your participation in this documentary in any way?
No, there's no money. No money in the future, no money now.
You had a breakdown as well, James.
Yeah, it happened. I mean, I was in a continuous breakdown. It's not any kind of way to live. But you don't connect something that happened to you as a kid as the reason why this is happening until I saw when Wade came out, and he was
You
just
saw
echoing.
an interview with Wade on TV.
Right, and it was like, oh my God, that's me. And okay, this is from abuse.
Then
What's
did you
going
reach
on?
out to him?
Not immediately. It was more like, okay, if there's a cause, I can find a solution. And so when I first saw it, it wasn't an instant like relief. Like I was triggered. Like seeing you was like coming back, all that sort of fear of being caught, wrapped up.
Right.
So it was like weeks of just kind of panic, and then that sort of had to unravel itself, and then the process of like, oh my God, now if I'm gonna fix this, I gotta say something. And if I say something, I can't go back.
Yeah.
And this is, the world will know. This isn't like stays in the family.
Right.
Like the decision to come forward is as scary as a thing as you can do.
Where does Michael Jackson sit with you both today?
I don't think I can answer that.
Yeah.
It's,
Yeah.
yeah. I still have really, I can't, yeah, a lot of mixed feelings. There's still a bit of love, and there's still, it's almost like a guilt for saying the truth. Like I've betrayed him.
Like you betrayed him?
Yeah, and it's like I still have those old wiring, that's still there. So, my relationship, or my understanding of my relationship with him, I think it needs a lot of work.
And when you hear a Michael Jackson song, you think what? Or you do, is it a trigger for you?
Yeah. Yeah, it's gotten better for me, but a lot of times if I'm in a restaurant or it's anywhere, a lot of times I'll have to leave because I feel it in my body first before I even realize that it's playing. I'll start feeling some anxiety, or sometimes even because his music was such a huge part of my life, I'll be tapping along to the song, or I'll be singing the melody, and then I'll realize what I'm doing, and it kind of takes over my whole body, and I have to leave.
I think your mothers are going to be in for some criticism. They are prominently featured in this documentary.
Yeah.
And I think as most mothers looking at this, they think, what was wrong with him? How could they have allowed it? Why did they allow it? And your answer, do you feel your mothers need to be defended? Are you okay with your mothers, both of you?
My relationship with my mother has grown immensely over the last 6 years or so. It was really challenging for a while, and I've gone through many phases just in this healing process in relation to her. I've gone through lots of anger towards her, lots of confusion. Thankfully, we've been able to go through a lot of healing through this process.
Because a mother's number one job is to protect her child.
Yeah.
And as I watched that, I had a lot of questions about how the behavior of your mothers in
Parents.
particular.
Yeah.
The
Parents.
parents are groomed, though.
The parents are groomed?
The parents are groomed as well. So Michael spends a lot of time talking to your parents, and connecting with them and building
Creating
relationships with them.
yeah.
So it's not, he pays attention to them, and they're groomed over the time. So it is their job to protect us, and they didn't, but I try to look at it from their point of view without letting them off the hook.
I think when you all had your sons too, the difference that made for you.
Well,
Wasn't that a life-changing moment for both of you when you had your sons?
That was everything, my son being born. If I never had a son, I might still be in silence.
Really?
I think there's a really good chance. What I understand about it now is that I had become so disconnected from myself as a little boy over the years through the process of kind of pushing all of this down, that I had no relationship with little Wade. I had no kind of concept or care for in my mind little
And in
Wade.
your son, did you see yourself as a little
That's
boy?
what happened. I started having visions or images of what happened to me happening to my son, and I saw images of Michael doing it to my son, and that was the first time that those kind of thoughts in relation to Michael ever had an extremely negative, scary, emotional reaction in me. You know, it was once I could see, really understand, this is what a little boy looks like and feels like and thinks like and behaves like. And this is what innocence feels like. And that was me.
The Jackson family points out to us that your story's changed after Michael's death, is what they're saying. They also believe that if he were still alive, you all would not be sitting here talking to us right now. There would be no movie, there would be no documentary, you would not be talking. What do you say to that? And he can't defend himself, of course, because he's no longer here.
Right.
This isn't other kids have come forward when he was alive.
But they're saying you two in particular would not be coming out because your stories have changed, you defended him, and now you're telling a different story. And that if he were alive, you would not be doing that.
Yeah, first of all, I mean, it's hard to speculate. If Michael was still alive and all of the other rest of the details of my life were the same, meaning I became a father, right? And I went through the same process that I did of this realization and going through the healing process. My belief is that we'd still be doing this. Of course, some details may be different, but what it would be now, I mean, the court case would have been about sending Michael to jail.
James?
I don't know. Would I have taken this to my grave? I certainly planned on doing that.
Yeah. In the documentary, you said you planned on taking it to your grave.
Right, so I had no expectations of ever telling anyone. So, you know, if he was still alive, I don't know, maybe I would have taken it to my grave. I don't know.
Do you think that there are others out there?
I do think there are others out
Yeah.
there. But I also don't expect them to just come out now that we're coming out. It's such a difficult thing to do, to come out. You have to do it when you're ready.
Yeah, I believe there are many other boys that Michael abused. I find it hard to believe that he had boys around for any other reason than to sexually abuse them. I, also saw with other boys, Michael doing so many of the same grooming techniques, all of the touching and the kissing and the hugging and the secrets and the disappearing. We'd all be hanging out, and then he would disappear with a boy
He would go off with
go
another
into another
little
room,
boy.
go behind a closed door, disappear for an hour or so, rejoin, all these things that he would do with me.
When you were the special one.
Yeah. So I also didn't see, explicit abuse happening with another boy, but I believe he abused many other boys. We can't change what happened to us. It happened, it's done. But what can we do with it now? How can we provide comfort for other survivors? How can we provide education to move towards prevention? That's what this is about. And Michael just happens to be the guy, the abuser, in this child sexual abuse story.
Right.